Hello, everybody. Welcome to the 18th Annual Tallgrass Film Festival. I'm Delilah Reed. I am the social media assistant to Tallgrass. And here with me today, I have Lorraine Lorand. She is the writer and director of A Cat Named Jam. And then we also have Kamaris Johnson, and he is here. He is the writer and director of Grab My Hand, A Letter to My Dad. Welcome. It's really exciting. I have both of you with me today because you are both of your shorts were animations, which was, you haven't got to see each other's films, unfortunately, but they're both so beautiful and really heartwarming. And I was just telling them before we got recording that I just rewatched Grab My Hand, A Letter to My Dad, and I was just crying because it just opened up all my feelings. Welcome, thank you for being here. Tell us where you're at right now. Where are we talking to you from?
Oh, I'm in Vancouver, Canada, and Liz told me that she is in
Ireland.
So cool.
And I'm just sitting here in Kansas. So I love that we're from so many different spots right now, getting to have a conversation about your remarkable films. So let's go ahead and get into it. I want to know from both of you, and whoever feels like talking first, how did you get into animation? How did that start for you?
Lauren, who's up?
Yeah, I was just thinking, God, it's been so long. I actually, as a child, was growing up, was always drawing, and I used to like make up stories and draw pictures and things like that. And you know, when I got older and tried to figure out what I was going to do, you know, I kind of just assumed I would go to art college. But just before I signed up for art college, I found out about this course in Dublin that they were running that was an animation course. So I did a complete right turn and went and pursued that instead. And I've been very, very lucky in my career. While I was at college, I made some wonderful friends, and they went on to start a studio called Cartoon Saloon, which is actually quite well known for feature films. So I've been lucky enough to work on some of their feature films and some of their TV shows. And so I had been nursing this idea for a cat called Jam for quite a long time. So then I took a break from Cartoon Saloon and decided to do this little project for myself. So I've been in animation for my whole career. So, but I think, you know, a cat called Jam is kind of the next step for me, because it's even though I've had a lot of responsibility on the films, this is the first thing that I've directed myself. So, and I've written it myself as well, which I hadn't planned on. It just turned out that way because I was making notes, and then I was like, actually, I've got a story, you know. So, so that's how I ended up getting here, really.
That's exciting, and congratulations on your directorial debut. It's always such a big one for everybody.
Yeah.
Cameras, how about you?
Yeah, funny enough, this is also my directorial debut.
Yeah.
I don't work in animation though. I'm mainly an actor. So I act on a lot of TV and some films. And I started writing, I would say 5 to 6, maybe 7 years ago. So now that I've been like doing this acting and writing thing for quite some time, directing has sort of been on the way. I've sort of grown some interest in it over the past couple of years. And animation, I've just always really loved. Some of my favorite projects of all time are animated TV series, Static Shock, Avatar: The Last Airbender, et cetera, et cetera. So I've had this deep love for animation for so long, and I'm still, even earlier this year, I was strictly only watching animated shows for months straight. So a couple years ago, I was working at this restaurant after shooting a TV show, and I met this animator who was like a regular at the restaurant. And I was like, oh, wow, your animation is really cool. I would love to team up with you and just make a short film. And we were working on one short film together. But then my dad's best friend passed away. Delilah, as you know from watching the film. So that is why we sort of put that film on pause and then made another film instead for my dad as a surprise. And that's sort of what the reason that I'm here is because it's doing festivals right now, which has been very surprising and very fun. So this short film, and I guess the other short film that we never got a chance to finish, has been my introduction into the animation space. And the other animated short is now in development as a TV series. So I guess I am like fully in the world of animation now, which is awesome because I wanted to be here for a long time.
Welcome. It's great, isn't it?
To me, animation seems like so much work, and it seems so daunting because it's so many moving parts, and it's every single frame matters, every single moment matters. And I'm an artist, but I never ever could in my entire life imagine doing animation. It blows my mind. I'm really impressed by it every time I see it. So
take it in like little bite-sized chunks, you know. You can't kind of tackle the whole thing in one go. It's too big to get your head around, so you have to kind of take like step by step, and then you suddenly turn around one day and you're like, okay, I've done it. How did that happen? But if you thought about the whole thing, it's too daunting. You just make a list and you just start.
That's amazing.
Well, I definitely thought that animation was going to take a bit longer, but I think it's just because my animator is such a workhorse. Like, he did the entire short himself, so everything but the music, he did. So he did the coloring and the animation and the editing and everything. And also, it was like this very specific flat 2D animation, which was, I guess, like you said before, a lot simpler for it. So since it was so simple, it was a little different. And I also sort of call it free animating too. So we didn't really storyboard it. He kind of just made it to my narration. So yeah, it's so funny how there's so many different types of animation and so many different types of showing it.
That's a really brilliant process for doing that, and his ability to say, okay, this is what I'm hearing, this is what I envision,
right?
Line, and it's so beautiful. I really that particular style is very intriguing to me, and I love whenever you're able to use the words as graphics and movement. And
right. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
And so I understand I get the reasons why, like, it's very clear what, for both of your films, what your like purpose and what story you were telling us. Like, here is the meaning behind it and what you're trying to say. But could you tell me a little bit more about what inspired you, Lorraine, to make A Cat Called Jam?
I actually got the idea while I was backpacking, and I'd been on a around the world trip backpacking, and I was on my last stop before I get home, and I guess I was kind of, you know, in a very much a transition, because your life is really different. You know, when you're traveling, you kind of have a lot more freedom and you kind of let a lot of things go. And then, you know, when you go home to so much expectations, and you go back to, in a way, like people have preconceived ideas about you, or they know one side of you, whether that's that I was going back into studio work, or I was coming back to friends and family, and you know, that they know you in this one way. And so I was thinking about, you know, if they could have seen me there, you know, in a hammock on the beach with a cocktail, they wouldn't have recognized the person who's at home, who's like quite serious and is making lists, and you know, that it was such a contrast. And I was thinking about the fact that, you know, how people see you is different based on their perspective, and that is often quite different to how you see yourself. And for me, you know, becoming a director had been a long time goal of mine, but that is something that I had been trying to, you know, show to other people was something that I could do, and that was something that I was working towards. And yet I knew that people were like, oh, she's really good over here in this area, and she's really good at this over here. So it was just trying to break out of my box a little bit. And I think, you know, for everybody, we have that experience of how we see ourselves, or the story that we want to tell about ourselves, versus what other people are seeing and hearing. And you've always got that kind of internal, external. Sometimes it's dialogue, and sometimes it's a conflict when, you know, you're trying to speak your truth. And So that kind of was all on my mind, which doesn't sound very relaxed for a hammock, but there you go. But that was it. I was just, how I knew how much things were going to change in a very short space of time. So a cat called Jack came to me about this cat who had this, internal conflict, and, how he looked on the outside was not how he felt on the inside. And the name came to me the very first day, and the story has changed slightly since, over different drafts and things like that. And but yeah, he was always a cat called Jam. Sometimes he was a girl, sometimes he was a boy. Like, he was still called Jam.
Was there any reason that Jam was the name, or did it just
Yeah. Jam and Treacle were always the cats. And so they were always kind of named after, things you could put on your bread.
What is a treacle then? I've never heard of that.
Treacle, it's not something that you get very much anymore, but it's kind of sticky and sweet, and you can just put it on bread and eat it. But you get it in cooking and baking a lot, actually. But yeah, it's just very, very sweet. Like you could put honey on, or maple syrup, something like that as well. So, but it's not something I did, but I know it's something that my parents had when they were young. Would have put treacle on porridge or something like that.
I love the title. The title has such great children's book and also feature film potential. It's such a good title, A Cat Called Jam. I love it.
Yeah, I did think of storybooks as well when I was making it, and I kind of took that into the design as well. Mm-hmm. And similar to yourself, the way you knew of this animator and you love their style, I had an idea in my head, and I just went online and just went looking for artists. And when I found the artist, she's based in California, she's so talented. And when I saw her stuff, I went, oh, that's it. That's in my head. All we have to do is just, I just have to describe the characters, but she's already making beautiful characters in the style that I can see. So it was just really nice then to speak to her, and it was a really easy collaboration. So that was a great start, because it's a long road, and that's just the first part of
it. So Cameron, with your film having such a deep meaning and a beautiful story that it just tells completely, when did you decide this is how I'm going to, this is what I'm going to make, and I'm going to write this, and how did that come about?
So my dad called me and told me that my uncle was in the hospital. He had not woken up the night before. The doctor said that he might have had a stroke in his sleep. So my dad drove up to North Carolina, and he was sort of watching over him for a couple of weeks. So every time he called, just sort of give me a check-in, I was noticing that we weren't really talking about how we were feeling. It was more about what was going on. He's doing this, the family's doing this, the hospital's doing this, the doctor's saying this, but we were never really saying are you okay? And I think the reason for that is because, my dad's a military man. He's not the type of guy to really show weakness. And as his son, when talking to him, I don't really know how to show my own or to ask him about his. So I wanted a way to make sure that he was doing okay without being invasive, and also sort of give him a never-ending memorial for his best friend, so that he can watch this film or watch this whatever it is, and when no one's looking and no one's around, he could cry, because I know he doesn't cry very often. So really the whole point of the film was to make my dad cry in his privacy. So I asked Pedro, my animator, and I was like, Pedro, can we just put a halt on this fun animated short that we were going to make? And can we just, actually I asked, I first asked, do you know any animators that would want to make this other short with me while we're making this short? And it was 10 pages. It was all these characters and transitions and all these crazy things. It's very Pixar short feeling. And he was like, you're not going to find anyone that's cheap, and if you do find someone that's cheap, it's not gonna get to your dad fast enough to help him grieve. he was like, what if you strip it down completely, just write what you're trying to say it, and then send that to me. And he's like, I've always wanted to make a film like that anyway. So we'll just put a pause on this project for a second, and also to just animate to what I'm feeling. You just direct me along the way. I was like, okay, yeah, let's do that. And I went to one of my best friends, Paul Lehrman and Lene Sage's house, who are like professional voiceover artists. And I was like, we'll be in and out in an hour, maybe 3 tops. Because I brought 2 friends to play my uncle and my aunt for a couple lines each. And we were there for 8 hours because I wanted to get the narration so perfect so that, I wanted the message to come across in the exact way that I wanted it to. And I wanted it to affect my dad in the exact way that I wanted it to. So my best friend Paul saw what I was going for, and he kept just like grilling me, like, no, do it again, do it again, do it again. And we finally got there. And so that's kind of how it all started. Is I just wanted a film to help me communicate with my pops. And it's funny how he came to visit me here in Vancouver while shooting. I'm here shooting a show called Batwoman. And when shooting the pilot, he came to visit, and me and Pedro finished the film while he was in town. So we got to watch the film together for the first time and hug and cry and do the whole thing.
I really appreciate that you created this capsule for him, memory, and also that you were able to just like capture for him the friendship and the closeness that he had. When I lost a friend in June, and one of the most meaningful things that people had been able to do was say like, hey, I knew that person meant a lot to you. Like, because when they're gone, you just like, you need validation that like that was real for you. And when people say it and speak it, it really hits hard.
Yeah, it makes it more real. Like, it sort of cements it in a way. And I didn't even know how close they were until the very end. Like, I knew they were best friends. I knew they were close. I didn't know until he was in the hospital. All these stories started coming up. All these things. All these like, oh wow, like your friendship is beautiful. I didn't know you called each other every morning. How did I never notice that you called each other every single morning since you were kids? I had no idea. So yeah, I like to your point. I never thought about like a memory capsule before. It's really interesting, very beautiful way to say it. Just, yeah, it sort of makes all the real feelings that you felt over all the years seem real. Like, it wasn't just like a fun, magical thing that happened. Like, this was the thing that was part of your life, and it hurts that it's gone, and other people notice that.
Yeah, having that recognition, I think, is really important for the grieving process.
Right.
It's just so well done, and I have. Like, it just felt so like this is for me today. It could be about you in those moments when you're experiencing them. And a good film, of course, you can always take away something for yourself, or anything, a good song, a good movie, a good, whatever it is, whenever you can pull it into yourselves and experience it for yourself and your like personal experiences.
Right.
Best friend who, we don't always call each other every day, but every day she has an alarm that goes off at noon to remind her to call me. So like,
oh, that's cute.
really bad about not talking. We just get busy in our own lives and not talk to each other for like months at a time. Sometimes it'll be a whole year. And she decided, no more of that. I'm gonna call you every damn day.
I love that. That's amazing.
And so that really got to me, because now like that's what we do, is check in on each other more frequently, and such a beautiful bonding friendship. I think that having that accountability and someone that you always look out for and care for, it's a really beautiful story.
Thank you.
Lorraine, I can't wait for you to see it.
Oh yeah, I know. It's I think it's going to be amazing. And even though even just the beautiful designs, they look so simple, but that's always so deceptive. Like, right. The simpler that a design is, the simpler that a story it is. That's actually way harder to achieve and to reach someone than to do something big and complicated with lots of bells and whistles. It can be so much more touching to have something very sparse but really deep, and I even get that from the still, so I can't wait to see the actual film.
Oh man, thank you. Wow. I appreciate it.
full. I am obsessed and still tearing. So these are quite, I know that it seems like animation from an outsider, especially me, not really knowing much about animation. I do occasionally the silliest little like stop motion animations, and I know it takes an awful lot. What like how many people end up being on a crew for you? Like what does the cast look like? Lorraine, do you want to? I feel like I looked at your cast list and it was an awful lot.
Yeah, yeah. I was really lucky. I feel like you have to try and get the best people for the best job, and I know that I'm not the best at every part. I know that there's certain things like, so my trajectory was to come up through the animation department. So I was a cleanup artist, like old school hand drawn. I'm around that long, and then I was an assistant animator, character animator, and then I was a lead and a supervisor and an animation director. And now I'm working as an assistant director on a feature film. So I kind of went gradually up through that department, but there are other departments where I would, have ideas about what I would want and would be able to discuss that with an artist. But, to sit down and actually achieve that without the support of these talented artists would be really, really difficult for me. So I really am a big proponent for if getting the right person, especially if you're not the right person, because you'll always look at it afterwards and go, oh, that could have been like this, or and you want it to be the best that you can be. And as soon as you finish it, you wish you'd done something else because you were like, oh, if I'd done that. But that's because you're always learning. And the best thing about like working with the best people is you're always learning. So I was really, really lucky, and I did have a really big crew because I was partially working on another project as well. I was finishing up another one as I was starting with this one, and it was just really important to me that I kind of put my best foot forward, So, and I had this like great network of people that I'd worked with over the years, and they're like who I'd been saying forever, God, I'd love to work with you on something. You're so talented, and here was this opportunity. So I jumped at it, and I just threw the kitchen sink at it, basically. And I was really, really lucky because it just makes your job so much easier as well. To get like-minded people working with you, and it is really tough as well. You're always going to run into stumbling blocks, and something's going to come up or not go your way, or you're just going to come up against a time crunch or a budget crunch, or someone's going to only be available for this period of time. So you're always kind of navigating these challenges, and just working with talented, lovely people makes those challenges just easier to face when they do come up, So I had a really, really big team, but I think it also came from the fact that I had come from TV series, and I had come from feature films, that I was used to this big crew. And because I've always been in animation as well, I've always kind of envied live action, of like being able to do like these guerrilla shoots. Like a few people go out and shoot a film in a few days, and I'm amazed. I haven't got a character design after a few days. So I've always been kind of envious of people being able to do that. But at the same time, I love the luxury of the time that I spend with my film because it's animation. I've often compare that live action feels like a sprint, like going out there and shooting a short film in a weekend. I know that there's months and months of preparation before that, but I always say that it's a sprint because it's so hectic. And then animation is like a marathon. You have to like keep going one foot in front of the other for quite a long time. I often think of it like that, and try to explain how long animation goes on in those terms,
On
Lorraine,
that,
I'd love to get your info after this. I want to get your
can you say that again? It didn't come out.
I was saying, Lorraine, I want to get your info after this, because I'd love to connect with you.
Making connection.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, Delilah.
I was going to ask, how long did it take you to create your film from start to finish?
Well, I had the idea 10 years ago.
Wow.
So I've been nursing that a long time. But from production, I had the script, and I had the character designs, and we have a film fund here called Screen Ireland, and they're hugely supportive of Irish film, and they run an animation short film scheme every year, and it's called Frameworks. And for a few years I've been saying, I'm going to put Jam in next year. I'm going to put Jam in next year. And eventually I did put Jam in, and they funded me, which is huge because there's no way that I could have afforded the team and the cast that I did work with if they hadn't given me that support. And they were involved all along as well. You know, we were talking about the cast, we were talking about the music, we were talking about many things along the way. So it's not only financial support that they offer. I was saying, I'm looking for someone for this part, for the older dog. And I was like, I'm really not sure, you know, who's right for that. They were like, how about these people and these people? Because of course, they're talking to filmmakers all the time, and they have a great idea in their head. You know, he's got great character, he's got this amazing voice, he's got this gravitas. So they were like, how about these people? And they sent me a list, and I went through and I listened to them all, and it was amazing. So it wasn't just the financial support of it, but from the time that they said, yes, we're going to give you this funding, to the time that I got it finished was probably about a year and a bit. We did struggle when we got to animation. At the time, animation was booming, and we just had really, really difficult time kind of lining up animators because everybody was working, which is a really great complaint for an industry to have. But it did just mean that people were working out of house, and I was, you know, basically it was a precursor for what we're all doing now. But it just takes a bit longer when, you know, you're working with people who are out of house. You're not in a room and you're like, oh, let's try this and let's try that, and oh, that's look good, but a little bit higher, or, you know, you can be that just takes a little bit longer when you've got to do it, you know, over email and over Skype and all these different things. But of course, we're all fluent in that now.
Well, guys, I have just a few more questions. About 1 minute. So I did want to ask a special Tallgrass question we always ask our filmmakers. Our motto is stubbornly independent. And so I want to just ask both of you, what does stubbornly independent do as a filmmaker?
Stubbornly independent. I mean, I saw that and I love that. I was like, well, that's really cool. I don't know. There's something about, you know, there's ways to make things with a lot of help and a big budget and the whole thing, which is one beautiful way to do it. There's also a way to wear many more hats than you need to, which is what I am very accustomed to. I tend to sort of have my hand in everything. So that's probably why I love to act. But then I was like, I want to learn how to write. And when I learned how to write, I was like, I want to learn how to direct. I want to learn how to produce. Like, I want to be a singer also. So I love, like, stubbornly independent to me means doing a little bit of everything. And I think that's why me and my animator get along so well, is because when we made this film, I was like, I'll be the writer and director. He was like, cool. And he just animated the whole thing. And I was like, cool, but like, I'll direct you a little. He was like, cool, but like, so we're always like, what else can I be doing? Yeah, that's what it means to me.
Fantastic. Lorraine, let's hear from you.
I was thinking about it as you were saying it, and for me, it kind of means sticking to your vision, because one of the things along the way is that, you know, you go to all these people for advice and they have all these different opinions, and, you know, you really appreciate it, and they're so talented and they're so smart. You want to take it all, but of course you can't. At the end of the day, you have to make the decision, and it's really difficult sometimes to stick to your guns when you have all of these advice, and they're great ideas, but you can't put everything together because it doesn't make sense when you put them together. So for me, staying stubbornly independent is kind of like sticking to your guns when you've got all these different ideas and things coming at you. because it's easier said than done, you know? So I think that's what it means to me.
Wonderful. I always love hearing everybody's experiences, and sometimes I get emotional. I think you are really so hard to make something happen and pushing forward, and also wearing so many different hats and really trying to keep to the integrity of the film. Well, thank you so much. I'm so glad that you guys have joined me today, and just really thankful that you're a part of Tallgrass Film Festival this year. And guys, thank you so much for being here. It was a wonderful chat that we got to have. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Thank you. Bye-bye.